Hello and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you two different ways on how we can implement feedback forms into our games. Obviously, gathering feedback from players is a really good way of improving your game and improving the things that players actually care about and not spending loads of time on stuff that they might not even care or notice. Now, obviously, you could collect this feedback through, comments on YouTube videos, comments on itch pages, the Steam reviews, Steam forums, stuff like that. But that's a lot of manual work, and obviously the best place for this feedback form is probably within the game itself. If people are struggling and frustrated, they might vent in the feedback form and give you some useful, actionable stuff. If that's not there, they may end up going to the Steam reviews and using that to vent and give feedback. So yeah, collecting feedback where the players are actually sat and they're playing the game and it's fresh in their mind, it's a really good thing to be thinking about and doing and implementing. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you two separate ways you can actually implement a feedback form in your game. Both ways are free and quite simple to implement. One uses Google Forms and Google Spreadsheets, and it allows you to create your own custom form, have very simple just text data, be sent to a Google Sheet that you can then log on to and view and kind of action how you want. The second way is actually from today's sponsor, Codex. Codex themselves have developed a Unity plugin that you can just install and get started with pretty much straight away. You need an account, obviously. The accounts are completely free, no credit card required. There are paid plans, which we'll get onto in just a second. But their feedback form plugin integrates directly with the Codex platform, which is a task management tool. So if you're using it as a task management tool anyway, that's just perfect. The feedback gets put in as actionable tasks that you can look at and filter through. And if this is the first time hearing about Codex, what exactly is it? Looking for a task management tool that turns your work into play? Then meet Codex. Inspired by collectible card games, Codex uses cards, decks, as well as projects to keep your team organized and engaged. You can track progress with the unique hand design, stay on top of conversations, and also plan your release with milestones and time tracking. Plus, Codex offers a very generous free plan, no credit card required. If you're ready to level up your project management, then you can visit codex.io/danposs to save 30% on your first 3 months of a paid plan. So thanks again to Codex for sponsoring this video. As I said, their feedback form is the second implementation I'm going to show you, and it's completely free. You can do it on a free tier account, and the plugin's free to download from GitHub. But yeah, let's just get straight on to implementing these two forms. Okay, so the first technique we're going to look at is using Google Forms and Google Sheets to implement a feedback form within Unity. We'll be able to type something in here, so we'll be able to put our name in. So I'm going to put Daniel, and then for email we'll put dan@email.com, and for feedback, I think this is some feedback for the tutorial. And if we hit send, and go over to our feedback form, you can see immediately that's there. So we've got Daniel, dan@email.com. This is some feedback for the tutorial. Okay, so this is quite simple to implement, but it's also simple in terms of the feedback that you can get. You're limited by Google Forms, obviously, as to what we can do, and that automatically goes into Google Sheets based on the form. It'll make sense as we go through it, but even though this is a simple way of doing it, it just means the data you're getting is also quite simple. But yeah, let's just start a new project in Unity and we can take a look at this. So I'm going to do a new project. I'm going to choose Unity 6000, which is the latest version, Unity 6. And we'll just create a simple universal 2D. And I'm going to call this the Unity 6 feedback tutorial _ Google form. And we'll hit create project and wait for that to open up. Okay, so here we are in Unity 6. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the form in the UI. So let's right click and create a canvas. So UI, canvas. And we're going to set this to scale with screen size with a reference resolution of 1920 by 1080. And we're going to right click on our canvas and come back down to UI and go to panel. And we'll press F to kind of go into to get this into frame, and we'll just drag in this panel here like this. So I'm going to keep this quite simple. So I'm going to just have a few different input fields. So I'm going to right click UI and come down to input field here, TextMesh Pro, and we'll hit import TMP Essentials. If you're doing this in a new project, you're not already using TextMesh Pro, you'll need to do that. And we can see our input field here. I'm just going to resize this slightly, and we'll bring it up here. Come to our text, and we'll enter some placeholder text. Okay, sometimes you need to, if you don't see the placeholder text and you get an error in the console, you'll just need to delete the input field and re-add it. Just because when we import the essentials, that seems to kind of, they're not there when the input field seems to be created obviously before the essentials are imported. So it's not linked properly. So if you just delete it and re-add an input field, you can see that it's there now. So we'll drag this up here and we'll just make this a bit bigger. We'll zoom in. So in the text area for both, I'm going to click on placeholder and I'm going to click on text by using control. And that allows us to change both of the TextMesh Pro text settings. And I'm just going to increase the font size slightly. We'll go to 28, for example. And we could center it in the box as well if we want. And we'll rename this to the name input. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a name. This could be any sort of text field that you want it to be. You could have it to be, you know, someone's mobile number or email address or name or username or like whatever. For this, I'm just going to put name, email, and message, just like in our previous example. So I'm just going to put name in the placeholder text, and let's just Control D to duplicate the name box, and we'll just bring this down. I'll rename this to email input, change the placeholder text to email, and for email, you might want to just put in brackets optional. If someone's put some feedback in about something serious, like a crash or something, you might want their email because you might want to get in touch with them to try and get their save files from them, try and debug it. So email's good, but obviously make sure that's optional. People might not want to give out their email. And press Control D to duplicate and bring this down. I'm going to name this to feedback area. And I'm going to make this box bigger. And for the text area, I'm going to go back to our placeholder and the text, so we can come to this component. I'm going to keep it size 28, but then I'm going to bring that back up so it's not in the middle of the box. And we'll change this to, say, feedback. Okay, and then finally on our panel, we will need a button to submit the form. So we'll right-click, button, TextMesh Pro, and we could just drag this down. And again, let's just make the button a bit bigger. And then for the button text, we'll say submit feedback. And we'll bump this up as well to 28. So we've got our feedback form built, the UI sort of side of it. And obviously you can style this however you want. So now let's make the actual script that does what we need it to do. So we're going to come to our panel object, and I'm just going to rename this to feedback form, and we'll add component, and we'll call this the Google Sheets feedback form. Why not? And that's obviously remembered that from when I did my test project. So Google Sheets feedback form, and we'll create and add that component. And once that's compiled, we'll open it up in our IDE. Okay, so we've got our empty script here. Okay, so first we're going to have a serialized field, and this is going to be a private input field. Actually, no, sorry, it's a TMP input field. And this is in the TM Pro namespace. So we need to make sure we have using TM Pro at the top. And I'm just going to call this the username input field. I'm going to duplicate this twice, and we'll have the email input field and the feedback input field. Okay, and then underneath this, I'm going to make some private strings that will store the text that is actually in our input fields. So I have private string underscore username, private string underscore email, private string underscore feedback. Okay, so now we want to make a public void method, and we're just going to call this send. And for now, all we're going to do with this send method is we're going to save the username input fields dot text value into username, and we'll do the same for our email string. That will be our email input field dot text variable, and feedback is equal to feedback input field dot text. So anything the user types, when they press the button, it's going to call this send method, and it's going to take the text from our input fields and put it into these strings. And then we're going to start a coroutine, which we'll make in a second. And this coroutine is going to be called post, and it's going to take in the username, email, and feedback strings. Okay, so outside of the send method, let's make this coroutine. So we're going to say private IE numerator, and this is in the system.collections namespace. So we need to using system.collections. We'll have private IE numerator, and we can just call this post. And actually, we can get rid of passing these through because we store them here before we start the coroutine, so we'll know that these won't be null. Okay, so here we need to go and make our Google Sheet and our Google form now before we can really do this. So let's just jump over to Google. So if in a browser you type in forms.google.com, it'll bring you to Google Forms. We'll create a blank form, and in here I'm just going to name this form Unity 6 Game Feedback. And for our first question, I'm going to change to short answer, and we're going to call this our name, and we'll duplicate this. So name, the second one's email, and this is feedback, and this is obviously, this matches the form that we've made in game. And I'm going to make this to paragraph. Now if we come up and preview the form, then we need to right click and click view page source. If you've got the option to, I would use line wrapping. It kind of makes this a bit easier to kind of read. And then we're going to press Control F and search for form response. And you see here we've got this form action, and there's a URL here, docs.google.com forms / blah, 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 and then form response. This URL, we're going to highlight it and Control C to copy it. And then we're going to come back over to our script. And underneath these variables, we're going to make a private static string called base underscore URL. And we're going to set this equal to this form response URL that we have here. And we're going to make a private static string username underscore field. And for now, let's just set that to a blank string. And we'll copy that twice, and we'll do email field and feedback field. So again, on this when we're viewing the form, if we right click and go to inspect, and this time we use this inspector here. If we press Control F and search for the word entry with followed by a full stop, you'll see it opens up these things here, these input type, and it says hidden name entry underscore 1331 1475 blah blah. These entry names are in the order of our form here. So this top one is for our name entry field, this middle one is for email, and this bottom one is for feedback. So we're going to double click entry, and it's going to highlight entry dot and then the numbers, and we'll press Ctrl+C, and we'll go back to our Unity code, and in username field we're going to paste that into the string, and then we're going to go back over to our browser, get the next one, go back to our IDE, paste that into email field, go back to our browser, get this, press Ctrl+C, go back, go into feedback field and paste that in. So these entry IDs are what we need to kind of identify where we're going to send the data to on the form. So now if we go back to private IE enumerator post, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a class called, we're going to create a new instance of a class called www.form, and this is just in the Unity engine namespace, so we don't need to have any includes other than the ones that are already there. And we can just call this form, and we'll set this equal to a new www form. Now we're going to do form.addField, and we're going to pass in our username underscore field string, and we're going to pass in the text of our username string. We're adding a field to this form. We're going to use this reference here, this entry.133, and we're passing in this username string. So whatever the user has entered, so Dan, Daniel, like Demon Lord, Slayer, whatever. And then we're going to do that again twice. So we'll do email underscore field and pass in our email string, and we'll do our feedback field and pass in our feedback string. So now we're going to actually post this using a web request. So we're going to put using Unity web request www, and we can equal this to Unity web request dot post, and here we're going to type in our base URL as the first parameter, and we're going to post the form as the second, paste the form as our second parameter. In this form here, we're sending that to this URL here, and because it's an IE enumerator, we can yield return, and we are going to wait for this to be sent to that URL. We're going to yield until send web request has completed, and then we're going to check to make sure that it actually sent properly. So we can say if www.result equals Unity web request.result.connection error. We can then say debug.log, and we can just log whatever the error was that it had for a bit more information. Or we can say else debug.log success. So it's a very short script. It's just quite convoluted, having to get these kind of entries from the Google form. Before we test this, let's go back to our form here, and we'll give this a name. If we just click it, it should be whatever the title is, so Unity 6 game feedback. And what we want to do is go to responses, and obviously there won't be any yet. We can hit this button here, link to sheets, and this will make a new spreadsheet. We'll hit create. So now this should do it in real time, and obviously this does depend on your connection, like your internet speeds and stuff. But if I bring our project over here and I bring the form over here, if I hit play and then maximize our form, so here, oh actually no, it's always the way, we need to make sure our button does something. So we're going to click our button here, the submit button. In the on click, we'll click plus. We'll drag in the feedback form panel so we can access the script, the Google Sheets feedback form script, and then we can hit send. So now when we hit the button, it will call our send method, which stores the references and starts our coroutine. So we'll hit play. Okay, so now if I make our form big, I can say Daniel, we'll do email dan@email.com. Feedback, this is some feedback from within Unity 6. Obviously there's some wrapping issues there on the text box, we'll have to fix that. But yeah, if we hit submit feedback and go over to our form here, so there's been an issue here, the error, object reference not set, right. Again, this is always the way, you always forget to set all the references, or at least I do. So again, on our form, we need to drag in our input, we need to drag in our email, and we need to drag in our feedback area. And then while we're here, let's go to feedback area. For text, we can go to text wrapping mode, and we can just, I guess, set that to normal. Hopefully that will be the option that we're looking for. We'll hit play. Let's try that again. Maximize. So we'll type in Daniel, dan@email.com. This is some test feedback from within Unity 6, and the wrapping still isn't working, but that's fine. We'll hit submit feedback, and you can see there it just pops up Daniel, dan@email.com. This is some test feedback from within Unity 6. So let's go back to our text area, our text, and let's just see if we can get this wrapping properly. Okay, so setting this to normal does make it wrap, but for some reason, when we set it to normal and then hit play, if you watch text wrapping mode here, normal, it goes back to preserve white space, no wrap. So we need to figure out that. Okay, that was a simple fix. So we can see it's wrapped here. All you need to do for this is on the actual input field, you come down here and it says line type. It's by default single line. You just need it to be multi-line. That was a nice, easy fix. So that's the first way of doing this form. So next I'll show you a really simple method of how we can use Codex's form widget plugin thing to get this functionality, but much better, and again for free, and it's really simple to implement. Okay, so the next method of getting feedback that I'm going to use is, as I mentioned, the Codex Unity integration widget. So here I am in my Codex dashboard. I've got my decks here, and we can see I've got a feedback deck, which currently empty. There's no cards in it. So the way the widget works is you can integrate it into your game. So if I go to my current project here, Revelocity, and I've got this give feedback button here. If I just click this button and it pops up this widget, the widget was already styled from Codex. I've just changed some of the colors, but the actual form was all built for you. It's already set up, ready to go. And you can see they've got some interesting stuff here. So we've got different categories. So we've got minor, major, critical, or just general feedback. We can write a bug description, and then there's an optional email address. This is really good as well, because if a user puts an email address in and then you deal with their feedback and you mark it as done on your Codex dashboard, they get an email at the end of the day just saying that your card's being dealt with. So that's quite good feedback for the actual end user, the player of your game. It's kind of nice to see that it's being worked on, that your feedback is actually being helpful. It's a nice feeling. So the way this looks in use, if we select a category, and I'll say this is a major issue, there is a major issue in the fact that I cannot continue past level 1, just as an example. And I'll put in just a fake email here, dan@email.com, and I will hit submit. And you can see that I've changed some of the colors to match my buttons. This yellow I was using, actually I need to update that. But we changed some of the fonts and stuff. I've changed the font of the submit button to match my font. I can go through and change any aspect of the form. But anyway, yeah, here's my give feedback, major, bit of feedback, and my email. So I'm going to hit submit. And we've got sending, and then report sent thank you, and then the form just closes itself. And then if we go back over to Codex, you can see immediately we have a card in our deck. There is a major issue in the fact that I cannot continue past level 1. The report was sent by dan@email.com, and it's using platform Windows Editor app version 0. That's based on the project settings in Unity. I've not actually changed them for the build, but it just shows you kind of what version they're on and what platform they're using. So this is the Windows Editor because it's not a built version of the game. But you can also see that there is an attachment. So if we go to View and Upload Attachments, it includes a screenshot of the game. And you can see here that I have a version number that's on screen. So I know that this is from version 0.7. So we're in app number 0, this app version 0, because I've not got to like version 1.0 of my game yet. But the actual build number, so this is version 0, build 7. And that's build 7 since I implemented this kind of on-screen UI. Anyway, this screenshot's really useful. And obviously the feedback button is just on my main menu. If that feedback button was in-game, it would actually give you a screenshot of in-game, like where the player is, so you can see exactly where in the game the player was when they're reporting this issue. Especially if they're talking quite vaguely about, oh, I can't progress past like some boulders or whatever, like whatever's in your game. You've got loads of boulders in your game, which specific ones, and they haven't mentioned, or they've not given you the exact coordinates, but you'll be able to see it in the screenshot that it's provided. So this is a really, really cool widget and that you can just implement into your projects. And obviously, Codex is completely free, no credit card required. There is obviously a paid version, which has some features, which I mentioned in kind of like the introduction to this. But yeah, let's actually get this widget implemented into Unity. Okay, so let's go through the process of actually setting this up from scratch. I'm going to make a new free account just so you can see it working on a free account. So let's just minimize this and let's go back to a browser. So again, if you use the link in the description below, you will get a discount on your first 3 months of a paid subscription. But again, it's totally free. You can just come up here, create account. No credit card required, and it's free. So first thing you need to do is put an organization name in. So let's call this Dan Post Tuts Tutorials. And you can see that the URL to get to my dashboard will be danposttuts.codex.io. And we'll hit next. And now you need to put in your email and name and set a password. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so once you've made your account and you've put your password and email and name, etc. in, you are presented with the Welcome to Codex account. So here we're going to say, I am a solo game dev. There's a little message from the co-founder, Riyadh. And then we are going to, what game title are you working on? So just say super awesome game. We'll hit continue. I found you via YouTube. We're going to skip this step about a Discord server, but if you want to, you can integrate the Discord bot into your Discord server. I'm just going to skip this. To help get you running, we're recommending this project structure based on what you've told us about yourself, and it's going to give you some decks, just pre-made decks, which are quite good ones. So game design, code, art, music, and sound, bugs. You can put your own different tasks in here, and I'm going to hit the plus button here and actually add feedback as a separate deck that we're going to put down. So let's jump into Codex. So here we've got super awesome game, and we've got our feedback deck here with no cards in it. So this is kind of how it was presented, how I presented it to you a second ago at my dashboard. So there is actually a really good kind of interactive tutorial. It's kind of gamified. You get experience and you level up as you use the tutorial. And I very highly recommend going through that. I'm not going to do that in this video, obviously. I'm just going to close the deck inspector, and then I'm going to come up to mission control, and I'm going to come down to organization settings, and then I'm going to go to user reports, and we can see here that we've got our user report kind of set up screen. And this is going to guide us through how to actually implement the widget. So we're going to create cards in, and we're going to select our feedback deck. And we're going to hit continue. Oh, and it needs a name of the application. So we'll say Super Awesome Game, and we'll hit continue. Now it gives you a report token and an access key. And the access key won't be shown again, but you can generate a new key at any time. And don't share the access key with anyone. I'm going to delete this account after we're done here with this tutorial, so it doesn't really matter, but I needed to show it you to show you how it all works. But yeah, this won't be shown again, so just copy that and just make a note of it somewhere safe. I'm just going to paste it in this notepad here. And we've got our default report token, so I'm just going to hit Control on that, and I'll put that in this notepad here as well. And I'll make a note that this is the report token and this is the access key. And you could save this to your desktop if you wanted. So I'm going to hit close. Again, it's very well kind of explained here, so like how this works, but it does say you'll soon be able to install the plugin directly from the Unity Asset Store. But while the verification is still ongoing, you can go over to their GitHub page and download the plugin from there. So let's go over to GitHub. Hello, Dan from a little bit in the future here. So it turns out that the Codex Feedback Reporter is actually already on the Unity store. They just need to update the text on the back end of the website, which is great. I've let them know that it says it's not available yet there. So hopefully that will be changed. But we're going to just go and install this through the asset store, and then we're going to jump back to the bit I originally recorded once it's set up. Because it's the same, it's just a different way of getting it, but this is just an easier way of getting it than through GitHub. So I'll have the link to it in the description, but you can just come to the asset store and search for the Codex Feedback Reporter. And I'm going to come over here and click Add to My Assets. And it's going to want me to sign into Unity, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I've signed in, and now I can click Add to My Assets. I'm going to accept the terms of service, and that's here in my assets. So I'm just going to close that, and I'm going to go over to my project here. I'm going to come up to Window and Package Manager. Go to My Assets, and we can just do a search for Codex. We've got the Codex Feedback Reporter. I'm just going to hit Download here. That's downloaded. We'll hit Import, and bit of an update here. Asset Package Manager dependency, so we'll install/upgrade those. And the Import Unity Package window comes up. We'll just hit Import there. And there we have it. Just check the console and make sure there's no errors. Yeah, and we can go over to Codex.io, Codex, Scenes, and check out the sample scene. We'll have to import TMP Essentials. And there you go. There is our feedback form. That's a much easier way than I'd originally recorded to install it. But now this is here, I'm going to go ahead and cut back to what I'd originally recorded. Right, so here we have our canvas with the feedback form and the card creator. So in the card creator, so here we've got our canvas, and then we've got the button, which is the show feedback form button. And then we've also got this object called card creator. You can see this has got the Codex card creator script on it. It's got the Codex URL. You can just leave that as is. And then in default token, we just want to go back and we want our report token here. So the access key is used if you want to generate report tokens at runtime, I believe. We don't actually need that here. We just need the report token. So we'll copy that, we'll paste it in here. And then if we hit play, and if we just maximize this, and we hit the give feedback, you can see the form pops up and it's already looks quite nice. So you can see this is how it looks by default, and then I'd done very minor modifications to it in my game. So we can select a category, do major, and this is a test bit of feedback from within Unity 6. Email address dan@email.com, send report, sending, report sent, thank you. Then the form closes. If we go back to Codex, so if we go back to Codex, you can see we've got one card. If we just refresh it and click it, we can see the card here. This is a test bit of feedback from within Unity 6. So this is a test bit of feedback, and this was from the Windows Editor app version 1. If we view our screenshot, we've just got obviously the feedback form. So that's how simple that is. It's just a plugin that you download and then you put in the report token. Obviously you have to make the account. If we go back to mission control, organization settings, user reports. So here in the setup section, it does say adapting it to your own needs. So after testing the initial setup, we recommend copying or integrating the sample scene into your own UI game scene, where you can configure it to show up when pressing a hotkey or by selecting a menu entry, etc. So what you can do is, so the easiest way to do this is if you click on Card Creator after you've put your token in and the Show Feedback Form button, and if we right click, create empty parent, and we can just name this Feedback Form. We can make this into a prefab. So let's just drag the parent object as a prefab here. And then if we save that, and we'll make a new scene. Okay, so pretend this is your game scene. I've just made a new scene. We just drag in our feedback form UI element. Obviously this needs to be part of a canvas. So UI canvas. Scale with screen size, 1920 by 1080. And we'll put the feedback form as part of our canvas. Let's zoom out a bit. So obviously we can move the button wherever we want within our UI for our use case, like wherever it makes sense. Or you could make a script on here that just opens up the card creator when the button's pressed. You can see from the button here, when it's pressed, it accesses this card creator window object script, codex card creator form. And all the button does is it calls the codex card creator form.show codex form method. So if you wanted this to happen on a button press, we could add a new component. We'll just say feedback hotkey. Obviously you'd put this into your input manager. And in our void update method, I'll just put if input.getKey down keycode.f8. We'll need a reference to the codex form, obviously, so serialized field, private codex card creator form. This is using the codex.runtime namespace. We'll just call this feedback form. So if F8 is pressed, we will do feedback form.show codex form. So let's go back to Unity. So back in Unity, we can just disable the button because we're in game. On this here, we'll drag in the card creator window to the feedback form selection, and then if we hit play and we're in game, we press F8, and the form pops up, but it's really big. So what we'll want to do here, so with this feedback form, obviously it's putting it down there. So let's center it into our actual canvas. Hit play, press F8. So we can see it's quite big here. There's the card creator window. So that's 600 by 437. What we might want to do is just scale this down. Oh, so the scale is 2.6 on the feedback form. Let's just stop that. Let's just set the feedback scale to 111. Hit play, F8. So here's our form here. Just had some weird scaling. So there's a critical bug. I cannot play any further. Hit send report. Report sent. Thank you. That closes. Go back to Codex. We can see now I cannot play any further. So this is the one I've literally just done. The screenshot is kind of processing. but it's received the screenshot. And here is our screenshot. Obviously it's just the blank empty scene, but there we go. That was so much simpler. At least I feel that was a lot simpler, and it's a lot more powerful than the Google form method that I showed you earlier. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy Codex if you choose to use it. Again, it's free. This is a brand new free account that I've just used and showed you on. No credit card required. But if you've used my link that's in the description below, you will be able to get 30% off your first 3 months of any paid plan. And as I said at the start, there are lots of different features on the paid version as well. But yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope it nets you some really good positive feedback for your games and helps you take your games sort of to the next level. If there's anything else you want me to cover on this topic or anything that I need to clarify, please do let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to respond. In the meantime, thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!